and bumped into the manager, who said to me, "I've got all this stuff that's sitting in my garage. Um, do you want any of it?" I said, "Yeah, I would, but I can't afford it." He said, "No, no problem. We'll work out payment for you." So I paid £15 a month in those days, and bought the equipment off them, and basically set up my own lighting business. I moved into production management and tour management while I was doing rock and roll. From I think, like within the construction industry, there's certain trades within the construction industry that become site managers or project directors in the future, and they tend to be kind of carpenters or people like that who would across everything from start to finish. Get involved in the venues and stuff. It's not as easy as you think. I remember doing an arena in Italy when I was working in Sucre, and the loading was every box had to go up on a telehandler over the bleachers and down into the arena. There was no loading. There was no loading. How mad is that?
Welcome to the Theatre Art Life podcast. Today we're talking with Lee Forde. Lee Forde is a former rock and roll lighting designer during the 80s and 90s who, 15 years on the road, went through the ranks from lighting and set design to production management and eventually tour management. When Lee came off the road, he moved into venues again, going through the ranks from production management to operations management and eventually general manager. Lee has worked in arenas and convention centres across the globe and now advises international governments on their plans for such venues. Lee is now based in the Middle East and is with us today to talk us through his career to date. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure, such a pleasure. So you started in the 80s and 90s in rock and roll. Tell us, how did you end up in rock and roll?
Okay, well, I started in electrical engineering and was working in the construction industry. And in the early 80s, that took a big hit. So as you do, you find any way of earning a living. So I was actually working in a bar and a restaurant, and the guy that cleaned the beer pumps was a drummer in a band, and their manager was Clive Epstein, who was Brian Epstein's brother. So obviously they had some clout behind them, and they also had some money behind them. And they had their own truck, they had their own PA system, and they just invested in a lighting system. And literally the conversation went something like, "You do electrical stuff. Could you help us put this system together? None of us have got any idea how it works." So I went down, set up the system, did a few shows with them. We were doing pubs and clubs around Liverpool at the time. And Liverpool had a really good, in hindsight. When you're in the middle of it, you don't realize because you've got nothing to compare it to. But I had an amazing music scene because at that time we had Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, Echo and the Bunnyman, A Flock of Seagulls, Wire Heat, Dead or Alive, all these bands all emerging, China Crisis. They used to play across the street upstairs in the bar across the road. So all this kind of stuff was happening. And this band that I work for, which shall remain nameless at the moment, were kind of tipped to the top. They had the management, they had the money behind them. So it was a good band to be with. And that's how I got into the industry. The band folded, as bands do. I'm not going to go into that. And I returned to being an electrician again and bumped into the manager, who said to me, "I've got all this stuff that's sitting in my garage. Do you want any of it?" I said, "Yeah, I would, but I can't afford it." He said, "No, no problem. We'll work out payment to it." So I paid £15 a month in those days, and bought the equipment off them, and basically set up my own lighting business. And that's in a nutshell how it happened. And I put myself out for hire. did shows in local clubs like Phase Two, uh, the Mardi Gras, the Picket. There was a lot. There was a great venue scene at the time, and a lot of bands playing. And so we had Frankie Goes to Hollywood. We had all these bands emerging at the time. And the first show I did was a band called Hazy Fantasy. I don't know if you remember that. And
Right.
I got in with the promoters, and I did all the local scene. There's a amusing story. I started getting a lot of requests from bands at the time to come down to rehearsals and work with them in the rehearsal studios, which I thought, this is fantastic. I'm not just doing shows, I'm rehearsing with the band, I'm learning the music, they're getting used to me. And then one of them confessed that because the rehearsal studios were so cold, they brought me down just to warm the room up. Because in those days we didn't have LED lights. So I was a glorified heater.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that actually did pay off.
I
I
love it.
did work with the bands. I mean, and it was great. You'd have Echo and the Bunnymen in one room, you'd be in another room, Flock of Seagulls in the next room, Frankie Goes to Hollywood's down the corridor. All this stuff was going on, and they were all, young, playing small clubs, etc. at the time. So that's how it started. And then I began working with a band called Two People. And they'd signed to, basically they were managed by Duran Duran's management at the time. So again, they thought that was a good springboard for them. And we did a number of shows, a number of tours, and that's when I started touring. We did support tours. You get to meet production managers, you get to meet tour managers, etc. And I did a tour with them, and the guy who was the tour manager called me up and said, "There's another band going out, and they need somebody to do backline." And I really do sound naive now, but this was literally what happened. I'm not going to dress it up. I said, "What's backline?" So he said, "Well, all the instruments and stuff." I said, "I've never done that before." He said, "Oh, you'll be fine. The way you work, it'll be fine." So I said, "Okay, I'll do it." So, so I went out to work with a Mark Almonds, who did Tainted Love. He was formerly in Soft Cell. He just split from Soft Cell, and he had this band called the Willing Sinners. So I thought I better learn about backline. So I happened to be in the local supermarket, Tesco's, and I bumped into a mate of mine, Neil Glover, who used to do guitars for Queen. And literally, we're walking down the aisles with our shopping trolleys, and I'm asking him, "How do you do backline?" And he's saying, "I can't tell you that walking around a supermarket." So he gave me some tips, and I went off with a pair of wire cutters, a guitar tuner, and a plectrum, in the hope that I would survive whatever it was I was going into. I turned up in Germany. I'd never worked with a band. I didn't know what they had. I didn't know any of the songs, didn't know any of the people, didn't know anything. I turned up the first gig, opened the back of the truck, and in there was a cello, a double bass, two Yang Chings. I don't know if you've ever come across them in your life. A bass guitar, a drum kit, and a keyboard, a Yamaha piano. So the drum kit I could handle. The Yamaha piano was just to plug two cables in. The rest of it, I didn't have a clue. So I set it up as best I could, thinking, I'll probably be going home tomorrow. And the band came in. And it turns out the band were all classically trained musicians, and they set up and tuned all their own stuff. So I got away with it. I didn't have to really tune anything. The piano was perfectly in tune all the time. The drum kit's a drum kit. The rest of it. So we did that tour, and at the end of the tour, the band said to me, "Would you really, really like to work with you again? Will you work with us again?" I said, "Look, I've got a confession to make. I've never done this before. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a lighting guy. So they said, they said, okay, we like you that much. Come and do lights for us. So I worked with them for 6, 7 years doing lighting. So that's kind of my
Wow.
baptism of fire into the business. But every time you go on tour, you come back, and I used to work in the local venue, um, the Royal Court Theatre, and I used to work in the Everyman Theatre as a casual. So you kind of you live this lifestyle, 5-star hotels and planes everywhere, but then you come back and get your feet back on the ground, and you're unloading trucks and doing load-ins and load-outs. Um, and that was great, good education, because you watch other lighting designers coming in, you see what they're doing, and yeah, you steal their ideas or you get ideas from their ideas. And that was great education. Um, it's difficult when you're a lighting designer or when you're touring with a band, because you're touring in isolation. You only ever see your stuff. So you can't compare it to anything else. So you don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent. Um, so that was a great way of learning new things, to be honest, and being able to assess how good or bad you are, really. Um, like I was the second person to take out moving mirror, waggly mirror lights. The first person was a guy called what was that? Paul Cooper, um, with a band called It Bites. And then I rented them. There was only 6 of them in the country at the time, and I took them out
Wow.
with a band called Primitives. And that was funny because I didn't know I was. I stick my name out a lot, I think, because I rented them from
What
the
desk did
company.
you
There's a,
use?
what desk did I use? We used an analog desk because they were analog lamps in those days. They were disco lights, and they only
Right.
used 0 to 10 volts. So you could fire them off a normal
Oh,
analog desk, and I used to use Selco desks. So I rented them, and I got the guy to come down to production and help me program them because I haven't got a clue. And he did. He helped me, show me how to open them up and get them to move and stuff. And I booked him for the final show in London to come down and help me reprogram because I knew I was going to need it. And the London shows are always supposed to be the best shows, the most important shows, which I think is unfortunate for the people in Belfast and Glasgow because they get fresh shows out of production rehearsals that aren't really quite what they could be yet. Um, so he came down to London after we'd been on tour for I think 2 months. It came down to London. I said, "I need you to tidy this program up. It's a bit messy." He turned around to me and said, "How the hell did you get him to do that?" He was he wasn't as advanced as I was. I'd learned so much more than he was. Like, show me how you did that. So it was actually playing around with speed control just to make you curious. So you would set positions and the speed between the positions. So instead of chopping, you don't allow them to get to the position, so they move around like that. So that was the old days. I mean, now it's all pre-programmed for you, and it's a lot easier. Um, but
yeah.
then, the thing when you work in a venue, you see shows come in, and there's another one tomorrow. And there was a phase when people brought out LED buttons when every show looked the same. And I must admit, there's that kind of phase now. I think there's a lot of moving heads, but there's not a lot of production time. And people are just doing pre-programmed stuff. So you go and see a show. Tonight you can go and see, I don't know, Metallica. Tomorrow you can go and see Sting. And there's not a lot of difference between the two. I think it's down as
Mm.
it's always been the issue in the industry. There's never enough production time. But then with me, I always used to, I had the newest desk, and then I'd spend the whole tour trying to learn how to use the desk instead of sticking to the wire. But that's
Yeah.
youth and foolishness. So that's kind of my baptism, how I got into the industry.
Oh, that's super interesting. And so then you moved into production management and operations and general management. So when did you sort of How was that sort of transition?
I moved into production management and tour management while I was doing rock and roll from, um, I think, like within the construction industry, there's certain trades within the construction industry that become site managers or the project directors of the future, and they tend to be kind of carpenters or people like that who would across everything from start to finish. So when you're doing lighting and set design, you're involved in everything. Um, the riggers come in first, the lampies go in second, then you've got sound, and then you've got set and stage and backline. So lighting tends to be, or lighting designers tend to be across the whole thing. And I would guess more likely to move into, I'm sure some sound engineers would argue with me, more likely to end up involved in production. So you're involved. You have to understand rigging. You have to understand lighting system. You have to understand sets. No disrespect to sound, but you either hang it and turn it on. It tends not to be really part of the rest of it. It is. Don't get me wrong, but um, you got a set, so you got to work with performers and the whole look and feel of it, and then you try and fit the sound system in where you can. And invariably, you are going to try and hide it behind scrims and stuff like that, wherever you can. So I think that lighting design and set design leads naturally into production management, which I got involved in. Also, running my own business. The financial side of it was something that I was very very good at and very attuned to, because I had to, otherwise we'd have died as a business. So spreadsheets and budgets and making things work and making books balance, and again that kind of leads into tour management. So yeah, and as you've seen from or heard from the conversation before, people ask me to do things, and I just say yeah, and then try and figure out how to do them afterwards. So I had that kind of natural
Just
aptitude.
dive in.
Yeah, I figure it out when I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a fun business, and it allows for that.
I was just saying it's really good because, you can have the opportunity to evolve and develop, but it doesn't come with nothing. Like you did a lot of years touring and the kit and the gear and timings of things. Like it does, it's not just that you can do it. You build it over time. So
yeah, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned by mistakes.
And now a note from our sponsor. The Theatre Art Live podcast is proud to be sponsored by Clearcom. Clearcom is the leader in voice communications for theatre and the performing arts. Call your cues with the simplicity and elegance of Clearcom Intercom solutions. You can find them at clearcom.com. Go check them out.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be where we are if we didn't make a lot of mistakes in the industry, that's for sure. Me too. What took you to the Middle East?
What took me to the Middle East? Right. Well, I came off the road when my daughter was born, because rock and roll touring is not really conducive to a stable marriage. Some people make it work, but I've seen a lot of them fail.
I can't imagine it would be.
Yeah. So when my daughter was born, I came off the road, but I love the industry. You either love it or you hate it. There's people who come and go with, oh, really? You have to, work with the band every day. Yeah, well, it's not that easy, and they'll be there for 3 weeks and then you'll never see them again. And there's people who know how to tough it out. So as I say, I love the industry. I wanted to still be involved with the industry and with people. So I decided, here's a different way of doing it. If I go into venues and work in arenas, then all my touring friends will come around and see me. So that was basically the rationale behind it, and I felt that I had basically from poacher to gamekeeper. I've got things to offer, and I moved into venues. I moved into the NEC in Birmingham. I started working for them. I started doing corporate shows, never done them before. So that was again another eye opener, using theatre boards as opposed to rock and roll boards, spending days and stupid amounts of money for a 2-hour corporate show. There's a lot more money in corporate than there is in rock and roll.
For
So
sure.
I kind of went to the University of Corporate Events. Did 3 years at the NEC in Birmingham. I'd like to say, well, I went from being head of lighting there to production manager, and then I left there when I heard that the Millennium celebrations were all, starting to happen. So there was a lot of work around. And I'm originally from Liverpool, the UK. So I got wind that Liverpool had won funding for a lighting project, architectural lighting project for the city. The city's got fabulous architecture. And I'm not being arrogant, but I'm, again, stuck my head in the noose. I thought, if anybody's going to like my city, it's going to be me. So I left the NEC, went back and got involved in the Millennium celebrations. Project managed the lighting of the city. It was all architectural lighting, projection and stuff. And the business was starting, the entertainment business was starting to get involved in architectural lighting. You started getting, color changes on buildings and stuff like that, building outdoor units. So I started getting involved in that. We'd had a few demos down at the NEC. So I took that information, and went back and started lighting buildings. I did a massive water screen show for the Millennium celebrations. Never done one of them before. I'd be happy to do them again. It was a good learning curve as well. So they actually get these pumps that they use in the mines in South Africa to pump the water out in case there's a collapse or it gets flooded. So these are massive water pumps that they use for the water screens. Again, somebody creative has thought, if I take this pump and I fire it against a piece of sheet metal, it'll spray up in the air. You can project onto that. It was not my idea, but I used it. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. So that got me involved with the city. And I think that was a great learning for the entertainment industry and local government and national government. We'd always been unhappy bedfellows in the past, but there was some great work done, and great bonds and appreciation of each other, shall we say. So now you see projection on Buckingham Palace every 5 minutes. There's firework displays all the time. So the industry kind of became happier with the government, and the government became happier with the industry. It became a lot easier to do things due to the ease of doing things during the Millennium celebrations. So during those times, that's when I kind of started understanding things like crowd management, health and safety, ticketing, road closures, all this kind of boring stuff to most people, but I found it fascinating. And the city then asked me, after the Millennium celebrations, if I'd take over the events team and work with the city in developing and changing and restructuring their events team, which I did do. And we won the European Capital of Culture. I was involved in the bidding for that. And then, due to the facilities that the city gave me, I went back and did an MBA at college. Again, I left school at 16 and I hadn't intended going to university, but I thoroughly enjoyed that. And the Chester University, who I was doing the MBA with, asked me if I'd come in and start up an events management course, which intrigued me at the time because I left school at 16 with X amount of certificates, not a lot, and then went into working with my hands as an electrician. So to be asked to come back and set up a course at a university was, I wish my mum was alive to see this one. So I did that.
This is great.
I did that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love working with the vibe and the energy and the want of the knowledge from you is great. That's how I got involved with Sharjah Performing Arts Academy as well. Um, so I love working with kids, but financially it wasn't great. I then went to work for another corporate entity called Grassroots. It was a global entity, setting up the technical department for them and doing their bigger global shows, which I did. Then the recession hit, 2008-9, and I'd been asked by my old employer, the NEC Group, if I'd come over to Ireland and open up the convention centre in Dublin. I've never done that before. I'll have a crack at that as well. So off I went, and opened the convention centre Dublin. That was a great experience, really good. My background and my family are Irish, so it was great crack, as they say over there, and a brilliant market. When people open convention centres, they're never quite sure how they're going to take off. Is the business there, etc. What tends to happen is consultants come in, sell them on the idea, and then the operators come in and have to try and prove it. And the consultants long gone who told that government that they were going to earn billions from this place. And then the poor operators kind of, well, anyway, Ireland took off really quickly because of the North American market, because the big businesses, the blue chip companies in North America were never, because there was no convention center, they were never able to go and do conferences in Ireland. And there's a lot of the Irish diaspora in Northern America. So they see that as the kind of homeland. So the business took off really, really well. And it's a great venue, fantastic venue, great people, great crack, and took off really well. But then the recession hit Ireland after it hit the UK. So in the November, there was talk about it, and it was a pretty ruthless winter. So I was approached by Qatar National Convention Centre, that's AEG Oakland actually, as to whether I'd go over to Qatar and open that one for them, which I wasn't sure. And then in the January, standing in 3 feet of snow when I took the phone call, and the recession busting that the Irish government had done was basically to put everyone's taxes up. So I just got paid.
Oh.
It's like, wow. So they hit everybody with higher taxes.
Where's my money?
Yeah, where's my money gone? I'm standing in 3 feet of snow. This lady is offering me 3 times as much money and a nice warm country and a house and a car and this house.
You're like,
no brainer. I'm coming.
I'm on a plane. Let's go.
Yeah. So that was a tough one to sell to the wife. But my eldest was 16 and my youngest was 10, and I convinced my wife that it would only be for 18 months, because it was a 2-year contract, and I was going to do 6 months on my own.
So
I convinced her to come out. Yeah, I said, if you can't do 18 months, what can you do? Anyway, she agreed. We went out there. We've never gone back, really. Plus, there was a side benefit, which I've got a 16-year-old daughter in an inner city. I've got a 10-year-old daughter. And when you come out to the Middle East, as you know, you've got to cover up. You can't drink alcohol, no boyfriends, and the education system is really good. And also the ethos here in Asia, the ethos is to study hard and get a good job. So it was dad heaven. When you've got 2 young daughters, you can't dress provocatively, no drinking, no boyfriends, and you go to school.
You took them out of trouble, man, and put them in the Middle East.
So we came out. We opened that. QNCC was it was tough, but it was good, and it was a great. I like the cultural differences. I learned from all my years of touring that I used to come back to the wife and say, look, Liverpool's not it. There's more out there. You've got to come and see it. And my youngest daughter has got that wanderlust. She's trying to tick off every country in the world at the moment. She's a model, so she's been all over the place. A few places I haven't, so we're kind of in competition. And that to me, travel and moving countries is a great education as well. So that's how I got into venues. I've got this, I guess, natural aptitude to sort things out. QNCC was,
Hmm.
there was some challenges in the beginning. We made it work and we got it on its feet. But alas,
Hmm.
there's not a massive amount of business there. I did COP18 there. We were just on COP28 here in Dubai. Um,
Hmm.
and then I
Oh, it
went
just
off to
happened, right?
China.
How did that go?
That went really well, really well. I think the
Yeah.
whole COP thing now is it's like a well-oiled machine, really. It soldiers on. I mean, it comes.
Mm.
I don't know if you want to. You done any UN events? No.
No, I haven't, but
Have you done?
I know a bunch
No.
of people that have done that, and
Yeah.
yeah,
So that so
and yeah,
there's
you can't
almost this massive, yeah, like a massive ride that comes with it. So you just follow that really.
follow
Um,
it. Yeah.
so yeah,
And then you
that
came
was
near
good.
me. You came to China. You said?
I did, yes. Again, AEG Ogden's, which is now sorry, it was SMG, which is now joined with AEG. What are they called? Can't remember the three-letter acronym. SMG came over to Qatar National Convention Centre and they did some research into how to improve the venue, etc. I was involved with them and they asked me if I'd come out to China with them and work on Shenzhen World, which is the largest convention center in the world. Um, 2 kilometers long. It's got two subways. Do you know it? Have you been? No? Yes?
I know I have not been, but I know of it. Yeah, because it's just over the
Yeah,
border,
yeah,
right? So yeah.
yeah. So it was a case of, oh, you in Hong Kong? Haha, right. So it was a case of would I come over and help with that, which was again another cultural experience. I worked on that for 2 years, um, and I'm happy to see it open. We put a really good system in there. We made that really work well. The um, the way of doing things in China is not necessarily to use spaces. So look, they've got patch systems, they've got networks that you would die for over here, um, but they still bring in the truss, put it on the floor, take the cables on the floor, and don't use the in-house system. So
Mm,
unfortunately, it does work. It will work, but they don't seem to use it. That's just the nature of the beast, I guess. I don't know what it's
yeah.
like in Hong
Yeah.
Kong. Hopefully, a little bit better.
Well, in Hong Kong, it's always a fight for space, right? So whenever we
Yeah.
think about loading in an event, you have a wonderful
Yeah.
big room, but it's really where does the stuff come in and what's the size of the
Yeah.
door? That's
Yeah.
always the
Well,
first
yeah,
question
and
because we have to
that's a
only build something that can get through a bloody door, and it's kind of the bane of my existence, like because
yeah.
you like if you just given us a nice clear path, we could do so much more, but it's
Yeah.
never like that in Hong Kong.
No.
The
No,
elevator and
no.
the
It's
door.
it's
That's what you got to figure out.
it's something that they don't think of. I mean, when they built the arena in Liverpool, which is my hometown, I was insistent to get involved. They wouldn't let me get involved because I wanted it to be right. It's almost as though my reputation here in the States is people are going to talk about my hometown arena, and it better be good. And they wouldn't let me get involved, and they built the door too small to take a truck in.
Yeah.
So the first event, they had to dig a hole in the floor to get the truck in. Anyway,
No, but it's I know I feel you because I think that like as somebody else who runs venues and operations, you understand that fast in, fast out saves money, right? And so if you're creating a pathway that makes it complex or difficult to get in and out, then you're not doing the operations any favor whatsoever, So it's always, especially people who work in the technical field or the production side of it, who go into a lot of venues, feel it, and yeah, I've been in some difficult venues, and then you get to one where you can drive the truck up and go, roll straight off. The loading dock's the same height as the
onto
truck.
the stage. Yeah.
And that's a great day.
And that's all, that's kind of why I wanted to get involved. We all complain about venues, and I thought, it's easy to complain. Get involved in the venues and start. It's not as easy as you'd think. I remember doing an arena in Italy when I was working with Zucchero, and the loading was every box had to go up on a telehandler over the bleachers and down into the arena. There was no loading. There was no loading. How mad is that? Anyway,
that's mad.
Shenzhen World was built and designed really, really well. But unfortunately, from what I understand, the way it's being used is that they're not using it. And whether that's due to not knowing, I don't know. But we tried really hard with that.
Yeah.
It was tough. Again, that was an interesting cultural experience. I've, look, in this industry, we have heated moments and we have heated arguments or discussions. But, next day we'll be in the pub having a pint together. So I found it unusual when you have an argument in China with Chinese people at a meeting. You then have to go to a karaoke bar with them, get absolutely drunk, and then they sit on the floor singing love songs to you to make up. Which, okay, that's the way you do it. That's the way I do it. That was a little bit of a cultural shock.
I want to see you in a karaoke bar. That's amazing.
I didn't know that was going on. I had a really big bust up over infrared and digital systems. And then they invited me out. I initially said no, and then somebody kind of tugged on me and said, "You can't. That's very rude to say no." I don't know what a KTV is. Oh no, you have to go. So I went with all these guys, and then they're sitting kneeling down singing love songs when they've been drinking half a bottle of whiskey. It's like, okay, I see. This is you making up.
That's fantastic.
This is you making friends.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah, that's it. When they bring out the Chinese wine, you're in trouble. That's for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but that's
that's
what our industry is about.
I'm a small woman. I'm a small woman too, so I can't really take that much advice. But anyway. But that's what's a beautiful, I think, when you get to work cross-culturally and connect with people through our industry. Absolutely. I think it's a wonderful thing,
Yeah. I mean, in the very early days of working with Mark Almond, I had a lady working with me who used to be a show caller in the theatre or stage manager in the theatre, Jane, lovely person. And I went off for 4 days to Vienna to do a show with Mark Coleman. Again, it was a very early day, so I didn't really know what to do. It was a one-day show, and we were there for 4 days. So I just stayed with the band, and they like to hang out and smoke and drink and whatever in the hotel. It was a Holiday Inn, so okay. So I stayed with them in the Holiday Inn. I went out to the local kind of sausage stand outside or whatever, and that's all I ever saw of Vienna. Came back, and Jane, who worked with me, said, "So, what did you think of Vienna?" I said, "I don't know. I only ever saw the hotel." "What hotel?" "Holiday Inn." She went, "Oh my God, you went to one of the most beautiful cities in the world. You stayed in a Holiday Inn, never left it." And she dressed me down. And I never forgot that, because we are very fortunate to get the opportunity to go to these places, and we should experience them. So I kind of became, I used to avoid what I call school dinners. When you're on tour and there's like 30 guys and they all go out together, firstly, you can never get into any places. And if you can, they're usually substandard. So they'd go right, I'd go left and find
Mm.
my own kind of flavor of whatever city I'm in. And that became my kind of mantra. I
Mm.
don't do school dinners. I'll go off and find my own version of Macau or Hong Kong and see what it leads me. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose,
Yeah.
but I have an experience, you know.
Yeah.
I don't get the eating chicken
No.
feet. I'm not a big fan of that. Which that was the first meal, the first business lunch I was taken out on in China. Was and they said, what do you want? I said, oh no, you order for me chicken feet. Uh-uh. I'm not going to ask you if you eat them things, but I
That's yeah.
don't think you do. And you have to eat heartily.
No, but I have. Yeah, you have to like it's always about being polite, right? And I think my worst one, Chongqing, China, is a place that is known for its spicy food, and I was out with colleagues there, and they took me. I said, "Oh yeah, look, I'm happy for spicy food, but not too spicy." So they took me to this place. They're like, "Fine, fine, we'll take you to a not spicy place." And they had these big beers, and then they brought out all this meat, no vegetables, no nothing. And I tell you, I don't know what kind of not spicy they thought it was, but I was dying. And I was like, I was drinking, having one piece of meat to literally the whole bottle of beer because it was so spicy. I'm like, thank God you didn't take me to the spicy place. I wouldn't have lasted. So yeah, no.
There's one place they took me to when I was gone. You go. So there's one place they took me to when I was leaving. And it was it was like a Michelin star Chinese restaurant. Um, again, I couldn't read the menu, so they ordered for me. And the first dish was 6 ducks' heads. I mean, heads on a plate, arranged in a nice fan. I said, what am I supposed to do with this? 6 ducks' heads.
Oh my
I'll eat
goodness.
the tongues. I said, well, just
Did
give
you
me
eat the
the
duck?
tongues then. No, I didn't. I just said, I can't. I'm sorry. And there was nothing in there. There was nothing in there that wasn't weird. So I
Yeah.
had to
Oh my
give
goodness.
my apologies and leave. I usually don't look at those things.
Yeah. But in some parts of the world they do eat things that are not in your wheelhouse, that's for sure. So
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, so we always finish with our 2 questions. So I'm gonna ask you those questions now. What's your most favorite thing about your job or the industry?
My most favorite thing is the people. The people that you meet that are a little bit crazy, a little bit off the wall, passionate about what they do, creative, innovative, and even people who may fall out, dislike each other. When it comes to it, they work as a team. I've seen people on the stage sorting problems out who were trying to knock 7 bells out of each other the day before. So it gives me the opportunity for travel, but it's the people. I think the people make it real.
I agree 100%. And if you could change one thing about your job or the industry, what would that be?
Oh, that's a tough one. If I could change anything, I think it's moving technically too fast. I think people just get used to something, and then the next week there's something else. So there's constant change. So companies and people who work in the business constantly trying to catch up, and they're never kind of settled enough to utilize what they have. So you're using edition 1 and edition 5's just come out. So you've got to have that in order to be a leading edge company. And you feel, as I did sometimes, you've got to be the coolest light designer with the most up to date desk, but you spend most of your time trying to learn how to use the blooming thing. Whereas you could do so much more and be so much more creative if it would just kind of settle a little bit. So I just think it's moving so fast now. Technology is moving so fast. It's difficult to say where it's going. AI, robots. I mean, one thing that's happened that I really love is drone shows, but that's a new facet to the industry that's using that. But
Mm,
um, I feel that the younger people now are struggling to keep up with the technology. I mean, they consider me, they call me old lamping, but um, they're not being creative anymore. They're not. They're just trying to play catch up. We used to spend hours in the warehouse with mirrors and water and slash curtains trying to make wacky effects and psychedelic effects. These guys are just trying to get on board with what's there, knowing that there's something else tomorrow. So I don't think they
mm,
have the time to be creative and learn to use the tools properly. That's why I think there's a lot of lighting design now, which is whack in a color and throw a few pre-programmed looks on and call that a song or call that a look, call that a show, and that's a shame because I do think the talent is there, but I'm not given the time to play with it enough. It's moving really fast. But then you're not going to slow it down, are you, I guess?
yeah, but it's really good sort of insight in the sense, and I've never actually thought about it from that perspective. That we started and early on. You said we don't get enough time in the venue or enough time to produce stuff. So there's this cycle where we're trying to put in shows really quick, but then also the technology's changing really quick, and it's just ad hoc, right? Like everything's just getting thrown there at the stage, and that's what having worked with Franco Dragone, who we used to create a lot in the space. It's a very expensive
Yeah,
exercise to do as circus
yeah,
shows, but it
yeah.
allowed people to have the time and the space to play with the machine and figure out how it works and all of that. But that's so rare, so rare. It's really we should all slow down a little bit.
I think so. Well, yeah, I mean, and let's hope that at some stage it'll go retro and park hands will come back and dinners will come back, but I doubt it. The thing is that it's more in the hands of the content creators now. Um, a lot of the shows that happen because a lot of shows are video or projection now, which is fine. And the companies that have the video or have the projection are basically just installers now. Get it in, make it work. Give me enough service to do X, Y, Z. And the people who've got the time to play are the content creators. So it's shifted
Mm,
that way. Um, and well, that's the way it's going. That's the way it's going. You can't stop it. But you've got, and please don't put this out. You've got computer geeks running shows now. People who will sit
mm.
on computers and put, content in. And does it fit the music? Does it work with the set? Maybe. Um, so I think that's a shame. It's out of our hands now.
Yeah, that's it. It's so true. Lee, thank you so much for your time. I've learned so much today, and thank you for your time on the Theatre Art Life podcast. It was truly a pleasure to hear about your work and career. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. You take care.
Theatre Art Life is a global media site for entertainment. Memberships start at only $38 per year. You can have unlimited access to our daily published articles, including entertainment news and the writings of active industry professionals, ensuring that you are always up to date on the global happenings in the world of entertainment. Become a part of the international entertainment community and join us now at www.theatreartlife.com.